We talked too about commercial property wholesaling. Can you wholesale commercial
Yeah.
properties and get those six-figure checks? You know, $500,000 is not uncommon for a wholesale fee on a commercial deal. So
Wow. What if you could sit in on a conversation with a commercial real estate investor and a commercial real estate attorney? Well, guess what? Your wish is granted because I have Ronald Rohde here, who is actually both. And you're going to have an opportunity in this video to listen in on his vast knowledge and experience as a commercial real estate investor and attorney. So, you know what you need to do is simply stand by. Let's get it.
Text me and I'll text you back.
Text me, then I'll text you back.
Text me, then I'll text you back.
You text me, then I'll text you back.
Text me, then I'll text you back.
TikTok, you don't stop.
I will help you make your paper stack.
Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at now?
205-964-52439. You know. 205-964-52439. You know.
intro.
All right. Hello, guys. This is Ty, aka the Flip Man, and this is one of these special days that we have a rare occasion to interview to get some tremendous knowledge from not only a commercial real estate investor, but he's also a commercial real estate attorney. That's all he does, right? And so he's going to be able to take and provide us insight on the business from both sides of it. So today we have my man Ronald Rohde out in the you're in the Dallas area.
That's right. See,
Dallas,
I should have worn my
Texas.
hat.
Yeah, that's what
Texas attorney.
Yeah, that's the attorney side. And so he's has a YouTube channel with tons of content. And I normally will remember what search did I put in to find someone. I think I was looking for no money down, and one of your videos popped up, and just started just video after video. As I was traveling, I like to do that. It might not be the most safest thing to
Yeah,
do,
you can definitely go down the rabbit hole. I think we talked too about commercial property wholesaling. Can you wholesale commercial
Yeah.
properties and get those six-figure checks? You know, $500,000 is not uncommon for a wholesale fee on a commercial deal. So
Wow. Guys, just have to interrupt the video for a moment. Got to introduce you to this new free tool that I had developed, Zomps. Find deals faster with a smarter Zillow. What I've done is taken the Google of residential real estate, which is Zillow, and created a Google Chrome extension to make it user-friendly for wholesalers/investors. Zillow has a lot of data from years before and ongoing, but it needs to be leveraged or can be leveraged for you as an investor to comp faster, to find deals faster, determine if you have a great land deal or not faster. Look for multifamily opportunities from 2 units and up. Also, how to leverage mobile homes as a potential opportunity to find great land deals. Zomps will do that for you. So what you can do is simply get over to Zomps.com, that's ZOMPZ.com. It's a play on the word comps and Zillow combined, and get your download now. It's free. Start using the tool. Find deals faster with a smarter Zillow. Now back to the video. Wow. So before we get in all of that good stuff, let's get a little background on you, Ron, man. Were you an attorney first, or which I don't want to get too far ahead? Were you an attorney first and then an investor, or?
I would say I'm both. I'm going to take that off. I can't take myself seriously with the hat, but yeah, you know, my background, I grew up in Dallas. I grew up in North Texas here. My parents were always commercial real estate. They were residential investors. So I've always grown up in that environment. And I like to tell the story, you know, when I was 16, my parents were nice. They bought me a car. And then that first Saturday morning, they said, okay, here's a set of keys, go take it to this tenant, go take these signed documents to the title company. Back then we didn't have e-sign, and go to this house, vacant house, and meet a plumber and sit there. I'm like, man, this I would say it sucks, but it for me as a 16-year-old kid, it sucked. Not how I wanted to spend my Saturday daytime. But it really taught me a lot. If you've talked to any of those trade guys, they love to chat. Plumbers are very chatty. And you just sit there. Pre-cell phone era, there's nothing to do. So I sit there in an empty house and talk to this guy. And I learned a lot about, how to find vendors and deal with the trades. And, my parents were good landlords, good investors. They're nice to everybody, pay promptly, that sort of thing. But I would say as soon as I graduated college and, I had a job, I was buying rentals. So I was buying SFR rentals, like, it's just something natural, like breathing.
Yeah.
But
So when you went, what was your undergraduate out of curiosity?
yeah, so I went to Cornell University. I majored in philosophy and economics.
Okay. All right. Interesting combination there.
It was.
Okay. So did you go to law school immediately after, or?
No, so I worked for a couple years in Columbus, Ohio. So I worked for Abercrombie and Fitch back kind of in their peak, but I worked in their corporate office. So
Okay, cool. All right. So so were you investing in that Ohio area or in Texas and Ohio, or what?
in Texas, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's kind of where my family is. That's where their network is, and so that made it a lot easier. But no, I from Texas went to New York, moved to Columbus, was there for 2 years, went to Florida, went to Miami for law school, practiced law in Florida, and then I came back to Texas. But the whole time, you can invest remotely, especially kind of the reverse, right? It's like I'm abroad, and then I'm investing back in my home city. So
I got you. Okay. So all right. So whenever you decided to go into law, go to law school or whatever, did you already know that, hey, I'm just going to be a commercial real estate attorney?
I
Uh,
think so. I think so. Again, just kind of growing up, I'm Chinese by background. My mom's Chinese and my
okay.
dad's American,
Okay.
but her English was never very strong, and
Okay.
so even from a very young age, and for other family members, I was reading documents. So let's say we get a notice from the city about
Uh-huh.
some fine, and they're like, I don't know what this means. Is this bad? Is this a warning? Is this, go to jail? And I would read this, legal notice from a city or from a tenant or proper, anything. And I'd be, probably unauthorized practice of law back when I'm like a 14-year-old kid. But when I had the chance to like learn about different areas, the law was kind of natural for me because I'd already been doing it. And growing up here, I feel like I have a good command of the English language. And yeah, every single legal job that I've had is been in real estate, leasing, retail, development, new construction, fund formation, and now, investment transactions and industrial and multifamily. So yeah, I would say I live, breathe, and eat commercial real estate.
Wow. 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 So how long have you been an attorney officially?
Yeah, officially 13 years.
Wow, you look younger than that. Okay, it just
Asian. Yeah.
that's what's up.
Asian blood.
Do you speak Mandarin
对
fluently?
对，我们说普通话。
Okay.
You know a little Chinese, right? You can say 你好,你好吗?
What does that mean?
It means how are you?
How are
Yeah,
you?
hello,
Okay.
how are you?
All right, that's what's. All right, well, let me ask you this real quick on that. Has that helped you in the sense of being able to do business with uh, Chinese descent?
It has. I think that the language skills are something that complement your practice,
Uh-huh.
but it's been a percentage, but it's never been, I would say, like a dominant
Okay.
majority.
Okay.
And I think I kind of naively thought that too when I started my own practice about 6 years ago. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I can just, cater to the Chinese community, which they own a lot of real estate. They have a lot of legal issues, and they're previously unrepresented. That couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, I still have a consistent small percentage of Chinese clients, but the American people that are in it to make money, they're saying, I'm going to make $1 million on this deal. I'm going to pay Ron his 5K. We're going to do it, make my money, and move on. Whereas I felt like a lot of the Chinese and my native population, they want to negotiate. They want, oh, can you do it for 3,000? Can you do it for 2,000? And I'm sitting here like, come on, you're going to make $1 million on this deal. Why are you quibbling with me? Because it's slowing you down, and you're not making that money. You're not buying that property or selling it because you're still negotiating with me. And 6 weeks later, that same client will come back and say, okay, well, okay, I'll do 4. Will you do 4? And I've already done 3 transactions with other people that, pull the trigger and do a deal. I'm not sure. I watched a couple of your videos, but you encourage people. You've got to get out there. You've got to you've got to talk to these people. As much planning and research and learning, there is no replacement for actually putting a property under contract and trying to sell it. And that's the kind of same thing I felt was, hey, I'm doing business with my clients or people that do deals. That's it at the end of the day.
At the end of the day. Okay, great. All right. So, so we got a little background about you. So let's get into someone that's, I guess we could take it from 2 angles. You're going to have people that are watching this that are already wholesaling or flipping or got rentals. They're already in it on the residential side, on the SFR side. We got that group, but then we have people that are brand new just to real estate, period. So let's take it from the standpoint of the people that are already out there doing deals on the residential side. If they want to, so they're going to probably have a little cash. So if they want to get into commercial, what would be the first thing to do, assuming you educate yourself, but what would be the first thing that they would do?
So I say this in all my videos, but the first step is you have to know your own goals. And I mean, really, really sit down, think about them. How much risk can you take? What's your time frame? What's your projected return? What would you be happy with? Because if you don't know what your own goals are and you don't know what your measurement of success is, you're not going to be successful. And I think for starting off, you can do SFRs, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and it's great, right? You're just adding cash flow. You're just stacking all these properties, and it's great. But at some point you need to stop and you need to remove yourself from the day-to-day and say, what am I doing? What do I want to do with my life? Because for a lot of those investors, once you establish the systems and the criteria and you built the relationships in the community, what do you want to do? Maybe you switch to multifamily. And so that's number 1 is figure out your own goals. And then from those goals, I would say pick the narrowest asset class that you want to be an expert in.
Okay, so and just to expound on that a little bit more is that one of the questions I'll get a lot, because I do a live Q&A once a week right now, and the commercial thing will come up there. Well, how do you come up with an ARV for commercial? And it's always the same answer is that first of all, it's not like houses because you have different asset classes of commercial, different types of properties from multifamily, self-storage, retail space, office space, medical office, hotel, motels, industrial, missing a couple, and so they're evaluated differently. But in most cases, commercial real estate is evaluated on the income that it can produce and or is producing, right? And so it's not just comparing what this other property sold for, which that's part of it. But for most investors, they're trying to see what's the end game on how much cash flow can it create for them. Am I explaining that correctly for them?
Yeah, 100%. So what you're saying is NOI, net operating income. This is before any debt service, before any ownership sponsor expenses, but that's your NOI, and it's divided by a cap rate for lack of a proxy. Maybe something's trading for a 7 cap, maybe it's trading for a 6 cap. So you divide it by the cap rate, and that's what your value is. You have levers to basically adjust either the NOI. You can increase your NOI or you can decrease your cap rate. And that's something that people maybe don't think about as much, but just increasing NOI, either increasing revenue or decreasing expenses, sure, that's fine. That's one way. But lowering your cap rate is another way to buy and make money without I guess, doing too much. Because let's say, again, we buy like a 10 cap property, but the tenant leases are all on gross leases. I don't know, digging too much, but let's say they're on a certain type of lease where the landlord pays for everything.
Yeah.
If you can get on renewals, the tenants to just sign longer leases, you will sell that for a lower cap rate instantly, instead of having people on a month-to-month lease. And if you can get them to sign year leases, all of them, or year and a half, or 2 years, you can decrease it to call it a 9 cap, right? There's going to be people that will pay you a higher premium because the leases are longer and they have some greater assurances that the tenants will stick around to justify the price. But that's one example. There's other ways that you can decrease the NOI from what you buy at. So, or increase the value, decrease the cap rate.
Correct. Just to simplify it even more for those that might have never heard the term cap rate or NOI before, is basically is that it's evaluated on. It's something like it. I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong. Like if you put some money in the bank, how much? What is the interest rate on it per year that it's going to make money? And that's sort of how commercial real estate is viewed. Is that capitalization rate, which cap rate is short for it, it's like, what interest am I going to make over a certain period of time?
Yeah, and if you want to throw more vocabulary, it's unlevered yield on cost is another way to look at it. But and that's what I love about commercial real estate. It can get as sophisticated as you want to be, and the more sophisticated you are, you're able to compete in smaller, less competitive ponds. But for somebody starting out, it can look like a big mountain, but you've got to take the steps, at the foothills and start on that journey. But
okay, all right. So say they've identified the property class, the property type that they want to target, and they've educated themselves. So how important is it? Because a lot of ways to finance a deal. All right, you can have all the money yourself and or credit to match up with it. What would be the expectations that they should have when they're running into making offers on properties? Again, I know that's a broad question, but just a baseline on that. What should your expectations be? Assuming you got some cash and some financing to go along with it.
Right. So I think if you have some initial cash, you're going to need it to put down, because the earnest money on commercial is going to be 10 times higher, right? You're not going to get wholesale. You're not going to be able to tie up a seller with $3,000, $5,000, even 10 or 15, right? If you're trying to buy a $1.5 million property, they're going to want 50K, 30K down. And so you're going to have to put that up with the title company as earnest money. And the biggest hurdle I would see is, do you have a certainty of close? Because these sellers, you're instantly in a much, much smaller community, and they're going to ask around. They're going to ask their broker, their buddies, the lender, the banker, the insurance, everybody. Who is this guy? Does he own any property? Or am I his guinea pig, to try to close on a first deal? And I think if you are more transparent about what connections you have or what your process is going to be, this is a situation that you're dealing with a much more sophisticated seller than on the residential side. So I would be more upfront about, hey, I think it's worth this. I would want to buy it for this price, but I am going to try to get a partner to come in on this deal. And for a lot of sellers, they say, okay, if I agree to sell it for 1.2 and you can turn around and sell it for 1.5, I'm okay with that, because I've told you I'm signing a contract with you at 1.2. Obviously, if I thought I could get 1.5, I wouldn't sign it with you. So I think sellers are a lot more understanding that I'm signing it with you because you can get it. But at the end of the day, if I'm a seller and I'm willing to sell for 1.2, what's the there's no harm to me. I'm not going to back out of the deal because I agreed to sell it to you at 1.2, and then you turn around and sell it for 1.5. So that's a big difference. And I think if you're transparent a little bit, you put the earnest money down, you start due diligence, you order your survey, you do your phase 1 environmental, you talk to a lender, If you truly are moving the ball on all these things, that's going to give them the highest confidence that you are going to close.
Okay. I don't know if you've watched any of Greg Dickerson's
Yeah, yeah,
content. Yeah.
I know him from Bigger Pockets. We chatted before his YouTube stuff, but he's huge now. He's really popular.
Oh yeah, he puts out a ton of content. And Greg, I interviewed him maybe 3 weeks ago. It may not even been that long. And he said one of the things that he's done over the years, especially on land, he'll basically he'll initiate the initial offer and put on the contract. He'll have this a feasibility study period of about 90 days
Yep.
where he's not going to put up anything. And then once his due diligence period starts, which is another 90 days, then he'll go hard with some earnest money.
Yep.
Can that really only be used when dealing with land, or it just either they accept the offer or they don't at the end of the day?
I think those periods, the length of time and the lack of any earnest money up front is only for land.
Okay.
Especially if it's raw land, if it's not platted subdivision stuff, if it's not, you need an incredible amount of time. And even the buyer that puts no money down, those 90 days, he's going to be spending time and energy and probably spending other money. And so the sellers kind of understand that trade-off.
Okay.
I don't think that exact scenario will work for most improved cash flowing properties.
Okay.
But the concept is still the same. You want to put as little as possible up front and get as long due diligence as you can. For Greg's example on land, it might just be 0 and 90. I think for an improved, maybe like a retail strip center, you can put 10,000 down and get 60, for example.
I got you.
But yeah, you can offer whatever you want. Just be aware, these sellers, if they don't need to sell, you have a higher odds of insulting them. And if in your market, if there's only 100 strip centers, you don't want to insult 30 of them because those could be your sellers. So
Correct. All right. So as far as the contract part of it, and one of the things after you and I had a consultation, and then what we discussed on the property that I'm targeting or whatever, and I thought through it. I was like, wow. I said, now you would have to have a certain amount of education, but I said it would be worth it to pay a commercial real estate attorney for an hour of their time to fill in some holes for you. Now you wouldn't want to go there and nothing about commercial real estate. Wait a minute, guy, this is not worth my time. You want to really have a good foundation of the understanding of it. And I said that would probably be one of the least expensive but most effective ways of learning what to do. Am I thinking in the wrong way on that?
No, absolutely. I think the more that I get out there and I share with people, the different investments that I have and the everyday knowledge from being a practicing attorney, I get a lot of people that kind of just book the consultation time with me. I have a link online. I'll drop it below. But a lot of people will just ask, they have a list of prepared questions and they just say, Ron, what do you think about doing self-storage in Orlando, Florida? They're like, I live here. This is my investments. I want to do this. What do you think about it? Because, in the commercial real estate space, there are no mentors kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
You've got brokers, but the brokers are always trying to sell you something.
Correct.
And so I always take their advice with a grain of salt because, okay, he's going to say self-storage in Orlando is great. And by the way, here's a few deals that you can buy. Whereas with an attorney or somebody like a coach, that's just kind of a fee. I think Greg does that. You pay, and I think I'm going to give you straight advice, right? I don't know you from Adam, but you're paying for my time. I want to help you be a successful investor. So I'm going to give you good advice about, tell me who you are, what have you done, and where do you want to go? And we'll just have a very candid conversation about that. But yeah, I find a lot more people are doing that these days, that don't have a specific legal question, but it's more just a general commercial real estate. How do I get started in industrial, or what is the best asset class around me, that I can do? Because you touched on it earlier, but commercial real estate is so broad. It is so diverse, and to me, that's what makes it fun. You've got to find an asset class that speaks to you. If you like, car washes, you're going to get into the automatic laser tunnels, self-drying. Those are incredible cash flowing businesses, but you've got to have some sort of passion for the industry, for the business. Same for multifamily. Do you love 3-story garden style walk-up apartments, for Class C tenants? Do you know that better than everybody else? And if you do, you're going to make a ton of money. But you've got to have that passion to fuel, kind of day in, day out. I said, I live, breathe, and eat it. It's because I love it. You have to find that. To the viewer right now, you have to find what your passion is within all of these asset classes, what really sparks it for you, and then invest and be the expert at the exclusion of everything else. Push it aside and just be laser focused on that one asset class.
Okay. Okay. So I get another question that I get is because I give away a 1-page contract. I've been using this contract for residential since 2003 personally.
Yeah.
And when I started doing the content, I understand internet marketing, so you have to give away something to get people to follow you. Sure. And give out the email address, phone number, whatever. If anybody watching that, that's how that works. So I give away the contract that I use, right? And so that works for houses and in most situations, because it's just really simple, 1 page. You're buying it as is. It's a cash deal. Put the clothes, and so, but. So I often get the question, well, do you have a contract for commercial? I said, it doesn't work like that. I said, you could probably, ain't no problem. You could download something off the internet or whatever. You're dealing with maybe a $250,000 property or something, small building or something. That'll probably work. But ideally, as he's mentioned before, when you're dealing with commercial, everybody involved is an investor. Whereas with houses, that may not be the case. Even a real estate agent may not even technically have an investment mindset or whatever if you're dealing with them.
Usually they don't.
They don't.
A lot of those real estate agents, they have no investments because they're a representative of the average population. The average population doesn't own rentals. They spend all their money when they come in. They don't save anything, and they don't have a long-term process or thought process like the listeners here. I mean, if you're listening, you want to get into rentals, you want to create that passive income. A lot of realtors, they have the tools, they have the exposure, but they don't have the mentality, and that's huge.
Oh yeah. And so so I always tell them, I say, it's really not like that. Just I could just put out something, but I know that's not going to work in a lot of commercial real estate situations. So as we discussed, of course, you're a commercial real estate attorney, so you prepare agreements. Now, I'm sure you could probably give someone a standard agreement or something that'll probably check a lot of boxes. But the more complicated, and you have some, the investors are sophisticated, they will come at you and sue you. That's a possibility. So you want all your dots, however they say it, T's crossed and dot your I's or whatever. And that's where an attorney can get involved in that. If you can speak on that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have a problem with any contract, that people want to use. I think my message, or what I want to convey to people, is you just have to understand what the risks are. And if you need a short, simple contract, and if it works for you, then that's great, right? More power to you. You're making more money with less muss and less fuss. But for commercial, like I said, in your target market, there may be 100 prospects, and you will absolutely burn your bridge with that seller who may own multiple properties, and anybody else he talks to saying, hey, I got a contract, I got a proposal from Ty. He's not serious, right? This didn't provide enough clarity about what happens if there's a disagreement. This didn't provide payment of certain fees or exceptions, or, sellers are going to want indemnifications for you to enter their property or your vendors to carry insurance, liability insurance. And that's just a simple clause. But what I've just described is probably 4 or 5 paragraphs that may or may not be in the PSA that you kind of just draft or download off the internet. But yeah, so for commercial, you've really got to be conscious of your role in the ecosystem, because it's not like there's 5,000 houses and every single seller is different and they don't talk to each other. There's 100. And I'll tell you, like 60 of them are owned by the same 10 people. And that's really critical, because on the flip side, if you make a good impression, if you close quickly and without any stress and make the seller happy, he's going to refer you to his buddies, and he's got 3 other ones that he'll sell you for a good price too. So the benefit is there too. But again, you're starting with a smaller pool. And if you're making $500,000 or $300,000 on the deal, how many deals do you really need to do, before you reach your goals? And I guess back to the contracts, the analogy that I use is every investor, you're a wholesaler or whatever, you're buying this, the contract is just a tool. You need the right tool for the job at the right time. And if it's a 1-page residential, fine, it works. If you need the state promulgated standard form, which is pretty fair, but still not great, you can use that if that's what the seller wants or that's what you're comfortable with. But if you need buyer friendly, right? Maybe you need a lot of outs. Maybe you need a lot of thresholds of additional earnest money. When does the money go hard? When could you get a refund of your earnest money? And when you start drafting all these clauses, you need a custom form so that it's easy to read for the seller and for your purposes. And that's, again, you'll have to cross that bridge when you get there. But downloading the PSA off the internet in and of itself is not bad. It's not a bad contract. It's not applicable to your situation. And that's the problem, right? You download something and it's general. I think it probably covers 90% or 99% in residential. But then in commercial, it probably covers 50%.
Wow.
So you got a 50-50 shot that the contract you downloaded is good. But if you start making changes and drafting and typing, you're setting yourself up to get, like you said, a lawsuit or just lose your earnest money, right? And that can be, again, considerable amount. If you're putting down $25K, you don't want to just lose it because of a sloppy drafting error.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, we sort of took it from the standpoint of someone that may have a little capital when they're starting and they were in the residential side of it. Let's take it for someone that says, hey, I'm starting from scratch. I hadn't done a residential deal or a commercial deal.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to go right into commercial, if you had to advise someone, you've done a lot of deals, you've closed a lot of deals, what would they need to do beyond the education part of it to line up their, ducks in a row or twos? Would they have to partner with someone with some cash and experience? Cash and maybe resources for his credit. What would you suggest in that situation if they're willing to put in the legwork to find deals?
Absolutely. So, I think that's definitely a misconception a little bit, is that you have to start somewhere else before you go to commercial. But I have a lot of clients that are first-time investors, real estate investors, and they go right into commercial. The best piece of advice that I say is don't start too small. The small properties are the worst. They don't have the size to really make it profitable. And if you don't have multiple locations, you don't have the scale, the economies of scale to do things profitably or efficiently. And what I mean by that is some people will bring me like an office condo for $400,000. I'm like, oh, can I do this and rent it out to some doctor's office or some accountant? I'm like, it's tough. You've got a lot of the learning process with none of the rewards. So basically you're going to be cash flow neutral every single year, because when you have to hire one handyman to come out, he charges you a whole month's of profit. And then the next month you've got, legal bill, and then that eats your whole month of profit. And then the month after that, you've got some other issue. So my advice, I think, is along you recommended, finding a partner would probably be the easiest and the fastest way to learn. And so if you have a little bit of capital, you bring them in, I think they have to put skin in the game, right? Everybody in this business too operates skin in the game. You know, if you want investors, if you want to be a GP, you want to do a syndication, everybody asks, what's your skin in the game? But you find somebody and you say, what's your asset type? What are you an expert in? And could I find a deal and bring it to you? And then you take the lead and I'll co-invest and basically kind of be your apprentice on everything that you do. Copy me on emails. Let me go on site, talk to the tenants, hire the property managers, any of the vendors, but I will chase things down for you. And I'll give you capital towards the equity. Cause let's say it's like a 500,000 equity requirement. You'll put in 300 and they put in 200. And then that's the fastest way I think to learn.
Okay. All right. What books would you obviously your channel is really good and informative. But some people are readers. That's their preference anyway. What would be some good books to read on commercial?
Yeah. I think Paul Moore has one, Storing Up Profits. It's about self-storage. It's a really good book. We can look for a link and drop it. I think it depends on the asset class and the type. I just finished, I think it's called Timing the Market Cycle. Howard Marks is the author.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really high level, kind of sophisticated analysis of real estate cycles. But understanding where we are in the real estate cycle will help increase your confidence about how you buy things or how you assess things. But yeah, I think that one's on self-storage. There's another book, I think Brian Praxis, it's called The Hands-Off Investor. And that's more for the LPs that are investing into syndicators. But I think it's good because it talks about the fundamentals that you need to understand. And the underwriting is the same, right? It's almost identical whether you're a passive LP investor or if you're the GP or you're the sponsor or you're a direct investor. Because you've got to have that mindset of, can I look at a deal and evaluate and say, what would I pay for it? And now the difference is somebody else is the one that's going to run it day to day. But you as an investor, you have to be able to underwrite and you have to be able to say what this property is worth and to be a good investor. So that one's good. And we'll drop those links. That's just a couple to get you started. But
okay. If you could just go into the services that you offer at your firm.
So we're commercial real estate. We're a transactional law firm. So we help investors buy and sell any type of commercial real estate. So multifamily, industrial, office, land, we do build for rent. So anything that's a commercial building, I don't know, say office, retail, we do a ton of retail. And then finally, we also do leasing. So we do triple net leasing and we really support our existing clients. After you buy that strip center, we'll help you do leasing and lease it up, improve that occupancy. And so that's one thing, but that's it. We're really focused on just those two things. We do entity formation as it relates to the acquisition process. So we'll help your partnership agreements, your operating agreements. We do all the LLC formations, but anything that has to do with buying that investment property, we can help with. We don't do securities work, so we don't do the syndication PPMs for a Reg D offering, but we work closely with a lot of different syndicating attorneys, so we can help raise money for a deal. But yeah, I mean, I like to think we're pretty focused, and we work in all 50 states, minus California. But
and why?
Well, California is very different. They're very much a notice-driven state. So on the contract, in most other states, I would say you don't have an affirmative duty to waive different due diligence periods. Instead, as the passage of time. So if your due diligence expires, at the end of February 28th at 5 p.m. or midnight, it just expires. Your money goes hard automatically. In California, if the buyer does not send a written notice to the seller that says, I waive my right to terminate, I waive my due diligence period, then the seller on the first has to send a demand and say, hey, you have to let me know, are you going to waive or not? And sometimes they'll say, no, I'm not going to waive because of X, Y, and Z. And then it starts this whole battle. But the point is, on March 5th, without any emails, you could still get your earnest money back. even though the expiration was February 28th. So it's a very different way of doing things. And you've got to be very move the ball. You basically every step of the way. Whereas other states, it's just hit the date, you're past it, buyer beware. So, and California is really tricky too, because their state laws really impact commercial. They have a lot of regulation on what you can and can't do. I don't say rent control, but along those lines. And just so we don't do it, they have a lot of form contracts. So you'll get like $10 million deals on just a state promulgated form that we're not as familiar with. Whereas those attorneys, they deal with that form all the time. So we deal with custom paper. That's just just a contract, just a custom drafted contract.
Okay. On the syndication, what's the normal fee range for? And I know it just depends, but
Yeah.
what's the normal fee range?
I think for people for budgeting, if you're raising less than 5 million in equity, it's about 20,000. 18 to 20K for attorney's fees for the syndication, PPM, OM, Blue Sky filings, all the Delaware LLCs. So you can budget that, and you can raise you can raise $1 million or you can raise 5 million, and then it kind of goes up from there.
Okay.
And that's for just a Reg D, kind of a plain down the fairway 506 offering, which is pretty common for a single asset raise.
Okay. Just a couple more questions. As far as when you're making an offer, and I know it could be different, but should someone always make like multiple offers in the sense of an all cash offer or owner financing in like the same LOI or something?
So I think that's going to come down to your preference and what works for your market. But my advice would be not to. I would say pick the scenario that's your best. What do you really want as a buyer? And then just present that. Because if you make it too confusing, the seller's not going to understand, and they're going to get terms mixed up and say, well, is that the same or is that not different? Keep it simple and put your best foot forward, and then only wait for their counter. And maybe they say the price is too low, and you say, okay, well then I'll do a higher purchase price if you take a seller note, carry back for $500,000 or something. Kind of, you can do an earn out or an escrowed portion. But yeah, I would say don't say this is the cash price, this is the seller financing price. I would just pick one first.
Okay. And I don't know why I never thought of this, but it just all clicked since I met you. But your offer will get taken a lot more seriously if it's presented by an attorney. Would you agree or not agree?
I do.
Yeah.
So I'll drop a link. I have a LOI video, and I really talk about it. I think there's a free form. There's a free LOI on that one as well. But it's your first impression. You don't get a second chance at a first impression. And if you're a newish or newer investor, you want to be the best offer that they get. And I think certainty of close becomes a much higher priority. And if they know, hey, this guy's represented, he's got a lawyer, the documents are going to be accurate, they're going to be fast, they're going to be prompt, he's going to close. He's going to feel good about it. If his lender has questions, the lawyer is going to answer right away and get the deal done. So yeah, I think you should use a lawyer, or you use a broker, I guess, if you have one, until you tell me, I don't need you anymore, Ron. I've got my own credibility. I know how to win deals. And I love it. I love to see it. It's like your little baby or something that's growing up, and they say, how do I know when I don't need you? And I say, you'll know, because you'll have that confidence. And you say, I don't need to spend $1,000 at this stage, because I'm putting together a really good offer. I know the market. I know this seller, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, that's great. That's fine. But yeah, in the beginning, I think you want to be paying for learning. You want to learn how to do the deal. And I'd much rather overpay by 15 or 20 or 30,000 on the first deal. And then on my second deal, I say, I don't need this. I only need this, or I don't need your help on this. I'm like, that's fine. I like it. When my clients are smart and sophisticated, it makes my job easier, and it saves the investor money. So.
And before we get out of just a bit of encouragement, I know you've done a lot of deals, maybe on the spot here, Can you give an example how one commercial deal has changed someone's financial situation and probably forever?
Absolutely. So again, I think it all stems back to know yourself.
Mhm.
What are you good at? And for somebody listening out there, it can be really easy to get intimidated by all the competition. There are wholesalers everywhere. And I'm in Dallas, right? I'm in DFW. There is so much competition. And if you are somebody that's very thoughtful, if you're very analytical, if you're very organized, and you're saying, how do I compete against all these other people? These sellers are getting 10 or 15 texts, maybe not a day, but a week for sure. I mean, I get them all the time. This is the way for you to differentiate yourself and just do one deal a year to make more than somebody that does 10 deals for 15K,
Hmm.
You do one deal because you want to pour your energy into a smaller market where there's no competition. I mean, I'll tell you, outside of like small multifamily, maybe some of the self storage, a lot of these commercial owners do not get unsolicited offers to sell. And
Wow.
so you are going to be applying your training, your scripts, your report. You're a likable person. You call them up, and on commercial too, there's a lot more people who are stressed out about managing it, or how are they going to get lease up? How are they going to fix the pizza tenant who's fighting the nail salon, and like the donut guy, makes a big grease pile every month. And the sellers, they're waiting for you. They're waiting for you to take this thing off of their hands. And that's where you can come in with real value, between a shopping center. Again, that's worth, call it like 1.8. But this seller, he is in a position of stress every month, trying to piece together rents to make his mortgage, to do this, to lease up vacancies, to fix the roof, fix the parking lot. And you come in and you offer him 800K, and he's like, oh, I want 1 million. You know what I'm saying? That so far off of the quote real value
Hmm.
that, I've worked with clients that have done it. Granted, it's a different process, but the fundamentals that you're teaching them, being consistent, following up with the seller, building that rapport. Just say, hey, man, what's going on? What's your life like? What's it like owning this? I'm interested. I'm buyers. How are your vacancies? How is lease up? What are your rates? What kind of leases are you on? You ask them these questions because you're trying to help them, and they're gonna give you this property for 800K, and then you're gonna turn around and market it for 1.3, and your contract price is 8. You're gonna sell it for 1.3, and you tell your end buyer this is worth 1.8.
Hmm.
Everybody's happy. And so I think that example is something that we see a lot in commercial. And yes, you may have to talk to 10, 15 sellers to get the one deal to close, but I think it's a better odds than talking to 400 single family
Hmm.
sellers and then
Yeah.
closing 8 of those, right?
Hmm.
The
Correct.
amount of stress to go through that many transactions, a lot can go wrong. And especially in this market, ARVs are coming down. It's tighter. Financing is tougher. Interest rates are up. There's just even more competition for those fewer number of properties. Whereas on the commercial side, you've got 100. Pick out 100. Pick out your top 30. Call those guys, and if you can get one deal out of 100, hey, you're set for the year. So
Wow. One other thing on like since we're talking about like making well, you may have an opportunity to, we'll just say, target 3 properties. So 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 those are 3 different offers. So you would need to be prepared, if especially you're going to use an attorney like yourself. So you would need to be prepared to spend that type of money for each offer in most cases, right?
yeah, so like in your example, let's say we're simultaneously offering on 3. So you're going to spend 3K to send out those offers, maybe a little discount. But what happens is you don't need to go under contract on all 3.
Okay.
Right? You pick the best one. And I see that a lot, and it's not uncommon that you'll have a signed quote, agreed upon LOI, but you won't consummate it with a contract. And that's totally fine and understandable. What you don't want to do is go under contract with the PSA tie up a bunch of time of the seller and do all this due diligence and then terminate. You'll get a bad reputation for the latter, but it's not going to hurt you to let them know politely, hey, sorry, I know we had this LOI, but we can't do it. That happens all the time. So I would say, yes, you can push out LOIs simultaneously. And then if all three of them come back, you pick the best one. And you only need to move forward on that one.
I got you. And just real quick, what's the time frame normally from LOI accepted to contract? Probably
a week.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right. Wow, Ron, a lot of info, man. I can go on and on, but I know time is money. And so, but I really, really appreciate you sharing your time with my audience here. If you could just tell everyone how they can reach you.
Yeah, best way is online. I'll drop my email. I like a Calendly link. You can find my YouTube channel. Anything online is the best way.
Yeah, I'll put all that in the description. Okay, boom. So we got it in, guys. Hey, you had an opportunity to listen to an actual commercial real estate investor and attorney. That's a rare combination, at least I will have access to anyway. So now you have access to him also. So as I always like to say, again, I appreciate Ron sharing his time and knowledge with us, guys, and get out there and do it. And we'll see you on the flip side.
Text me and I'll text you back.
Text me, and I'll text you back.
Text me and I'll text you back.
You text me, then I'll text you back.
Text me then I'll text you back.
TikTok, you don't stop.
I will help you make your paper stack.
Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at now?
205-964-5243. Now you know. 205-964-5243. Now you know.